So you're Blues captain Ryan O'Reilly, and you want a haircut that's as custom as your stick curve. At Great Clips, we save your haircut details in clip notes, so you get your signature look every time. We got you, and you got this. Great Clips, official hair salon of the NHL.
Huge week for the Vancouver Canucks franchise as three members of their 2010-11 Stanley Cup final team go into the Hall of Fame. Joining us now, the 2011 Frank J. Selke Trophy Award winner, best defensive forward, a member of that club. Our pleasure to welcome back Mr. Ryan Kesler to Sekeres Price. Hi, Kes. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Very, very well. What did it mean to you to hear three of your teammates and old friends going into the Hall of Fame this week?
It's pretty cool, actually. You always look back, and even when you're in it, you realize the special talent that they are with Louis and the twins. But for it to be official and for them to be going into the Hall of Fame, it's pretty special. Just to say that you played for a very long time, the majority of your career with three Hall of Famers. It's special.
We always heard about how Danny and Hank set the tone with that club in terms of work ethic on and off the ice, attitude, and all of those things. Take us into that process, Gus. What was it like playing with Hank and Danny day after day when they're working as hard as they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, you said it there. They set the tone, and they set the tone by day in, day out, just leading by example. Hank and Danny, I came in my first year, and I think they were getting pushed around a bit, and they not when you looked at them, you're like, wow, those guys are in great shape. But my first year, you kind of realize that they were sick of being pushed around. They worked hard off the ice. And the next year they came in, and I was like, okay, yeah, these guys are legit. And I think what everybody loved was their mind. But I don't think people understand how hard it is to play in the corners like they did, and how hard it is to protect the puck and make a tape-to-tape pass when you got three guys hanging all over you. That takes strength, and that just didn't come overnight. They worked hard on it, and the first thing I remember about the Sedins is going to the grouse grind with, like, I think it was Juice, the Sedins, maybe Burrows, and they took off on all of us. And I remember seeing them up the hill a little bit, and then all of a sudden they're gone. And I'm like, these guys are like gazelles up the mountain. And from that point forward, they pushed me. I always wanted to be the guy that was a part of the team, right? Like was a huge part of the team. But I knew I wasn't maybe good enough to lead a team to the Stanley Cup. I think I had a couple of years there where I was successful, but you look at what Hank and Danny and Louis did over the course of their career, and that's special.
You played a straight ahead game, and obviously that worked for you. Their success came from short passes and finding space and being one step ahead of everybody else. Like, were there moments in games where you'd sit on the bench and just sort of marvel and at times even laugh the way that they were able to toy with opponents?
Yeah, we played completely different styles. I was always in your face, and people were always in their face, and for a very good reason, because they were very good at what they did, and they supported each other well. They passed the puck on the dime, and for me, I was a guy that just wanted to go to the net, use my shot, use my speed, and use my grit to be able to get under opponent's skin, and I thought we were a good 1-2 punch in the league for many years.
You played with your heart on your sleeve. We could tell when you were pissed off. The entire rink could see it. And I think that worked to your advantage. I mean, that's who you were. They were the models of even keel and level-headed, and nothing seemed to get to them. did you ever see them frustrated at each other or behind closed doors? Like, did you ever sense frustration at any level from the Sedins?
That's the thing that I love most about those guys. They had kind of like an aura about them that they were never rattled. They had guys hang all over them on the ice. They had refs not really respect them at times. And they just, no matter if they scored 3 goals that game or they were goalless in 7 or 8, they're the same person off the ice. After the game, I never once saw them lash out at anybody or slam their sticks or get frustrated. And that's not to take away from how competitive they were. They were one of the most competitive people, or they were the most competitive people I've ever met. They wanted to win more than anybody. I just, I showed it more. I think I showed my frustration. Like you said, I wore my heart on my sleeve and I broke sticks on the bench. And it wasn't that I was frustrated with my teammates. It was more I was frustrated with myself. And, looking back on it, body language is huge, especially when you're a leader on the team and, they actually helped me a lot with that, and they helped kind of even me out. And if I didn't have them, I probably would have broke a stick every shift. And I cannot say enough about how mentally strong those guys are, and just what they've done for my career, or what they did for my career, and the type of people they are, and the type of players they are, how they mentally get ready on the ice, off the ice. You talk about leading by example. They were always in the gym, the first ones in the gym. They were first ones at the arena. And no matter if they were injured or not, they're always on the bike after the game. They were always in the weight room. And to be honest, guys, like, there's a lot of times you don't want to go into the gym after the game. You play, like, especially when they play like 22 minutes and I'm playing 22 minutes, that you're exhausted. But they always knew that if they went in, the rest of the teams would go in. And that's what's so special about those two.
Mm. You centered your own line, of course, and didn't get a lot of time with them on even strength, but you did get to play with them on the power play a fair bit. Kes, take us into that process, and how much did you basically have to learn Sedinery to play with those guys on the power play?
Well, I got to see it a lot. I liked it better when I was the shooter and not standing in front of the net getting the crap beat out of me. But they're so smart and so good on the power play. You got power play players, and then you got guys like me that, you let the power play players do what they do, and you're either in front of the net or you're shooting the puck, and that's your job. And I knew my job, and whenever I entered the zone, I always said, "Where's Danny? Where's Hank? Let me get them the puck. Let me let them do their thing, and I'll just get open for them, or I'll stand and I'll screen in front of the net." And sometimes you think you're going to get the puck and you don't get it, and then all of a sudden the puck's on your stick and it's in the back of the net. And I think that's what made them such great power play players, is they drew not just one guy. They shifted the whole box over to them, and they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew where they were putting the puck, and they knew how to get those guys away from where they were gonna put the puck. And they're generational type players. You don't get those players very often at all. And they weren't just good on the power play. They were good 5-on-5. And even when Torts started throwing them out in PK, they were good PKers too. They were scoring short-handed goals. So for me, they were full, complete players.
One of the things I think the Twins did for us in this market is redefine what we understand as toughness. Not necessarily the rough and tumble, drop the gloves, go hit somebody in the corner and all that, but the ability to take all the abuse and just keep on going, not take that retaliation penalty. How difficult was it sometimes as a teammate of Danny, or Hank, to watch them take what they took and see them not retaliate? Like, how often would you want to go on out there and sort of defend them and their honor based on the abuse they were taking?
Yeah, you always want to. You always, I think that's what made that 2011 team so good is we had each other's backs and we wanted to defend each other and we all accepted our roles and Hank and Daddy never wanted us to. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were going to take their abuse, but they took it and they kept on trucking. And for me, looking back on a guy that maybe was doing it to the other team's top players, that probably frustrated those guys more than anything. Because when I used to play against the Crosbys and he wouldn't react to me, I'd kind of get into my own head, like, am I doing something wrong here? Like, what else do I need to do to get these guys off their game? So they knew what they were doing, and they're just, I can't say enough about these. Well, to be honest, these three, right? They're good people on and off the ice, and it's something about that group that we had that year that we all still keep in touch.
We should move on to Roberto. Yeah,
well,
Jeff,
I wanted to because Henrik was the captain after Roberto was the captain, and I just wonder. I mean, obviously, management was looking to do something a little bit different and reflect what Roberto meant to the organization, but it certainly was outside the box, putting a C on a goaltender. Do you remember in the moment as a player, like, did that seem like a strange thing to you guys, or was Roberto certainly considered a big part of the leadership group in there, and did it make sense on some level?
I think in the moment you're like, yeah. We all went in there and Alain Vigneault was like, you know what, he's our best player. He's our leader. We're not going anywhere without this guy. So he's going to be our captain. We're like, yeah, 100%. We agree. And then, looking back on it, I think Louis would even say it, for him, it just added pressure that wasn't needed. He would have to, I think he felt like he had to go into the room and say something where, I don't want my goalie saying anything between periods. And to be honest, they're kind of like disconnected from the bench. So they don't have the vibe of the bench and they don't have the vibe of the coaches. So, I think it was a good thought and I was all for it. But I think looking back on it, they made the right decision going back to a player. It's a lot of pressure, and Louis handled it well, and he did a great job, and he talked to the media every time after. But I think once we moved that away from him, you saw Louis' game take another step, and he was a great goalie for us at the beginning. But those 2 years that we had the 2 Presidents trophies in a row, and we had that long Stanley Cup final run. He was by far our best player.
What are your thoughts and feelings about him going into the Hall of Fame?
Goalies are weird. We all know that, but Louis different. I think that strong bone was a secret for a while, but we all knew on the team who it was, and I think he was private at first, and then there's a little competition between him and someone about who would get more followers, and he went on the site. He's like, "Hey, Cass, like, tweet something out so I get more followers." So that's him, though. Like, Strombone is him. He's a funny guy. Like, he's a guy that's witty. He's a guy that he's easy to be around. He's a guy that if you pick up the phone and call him, it's like you never left, right? Now he's in management now, so maybe he's toned it down a bit, but not too much. But he's a person that I think a lot of people were hard on him after that cup run, which wasn't deserved at all, because you look at the way he played, and we lost in 7, but we don't get this 7 without him. He pitched 2 shutouts in the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, that's a pretty good stat. And saying that, he's another guy that you never knew anything bothered him. I think he had a couple times that he cracked a bit in the media, but He's a guy that knew his job, knew his role, and he always wanted to be in the net. He always wanted to be a difference maker. And, I remember like the coaches and the GM pulling him in and being like, listen, we don't want you playing 70 games because you're going to be dead come playoff time. And I think that was really hard on him to do that. But, he bought in, he knew his role, and he allowed, Corey to come in and take up that backup position, eat up some minutes, eat up some games. And that really helped us down the stretch as well.
He struck me as somebody who thought the game pretty sophisticatedly. You took all the defensive draws. You got all the tough defensive matchups. Can you tell us a little bit about, Roberto and how you guys went about trying to stop the opposition and stop the opposition's best players?
Well, I think my job's easy. Just get out of the way and let him see it, because he always yelled, move or can't see. So, that means either box the guy out or move and let me do my thing. So, I don't think he ever minded shots, but he didn't want shots with screens. He didn't want second opportunities. And that's where our role came in, with the defensive core that we had and with my job shutting down the other team's best guys, it kind of made my job easier knowing that I had that guy back there. It just gives you a sense of confidence. He was a guy that calmed things down for us back there. And he was a guy that, feel like I'm pumping this guy's tire, but we should be, because he's a Hall of Famer. Like that's, to me, that's that is the highest honor you can have as a player is, off the ice, on the ice, this guy was first class, and he's finally getting recognized the way he should be. And I hope all the fans in Vancouver realize how special he was to this team and how special he was to this cup run, because without him, without the Sedins, we don't get to the finals. We don't get put it to 7, and we don't have that experience, because looking back, that was the best experience of my entire career. It was the funnest hockey, most fun hockey. And well, not just for me, but my family came into town. My friends came into town. I was talking to my buddy. He's like, I do this cool stuff because of you. And they all think of that cup run as the best experience of their life. So, and I hope all the fans in Vancouver realize, like, that was a pretty fun time to be a Vancouver Canuck, and a pretty good time to be a fan of the Vancouver Canucks, because we knew every time stepping on the ice that we were going to win. And that was the swagger we had, and that was the swagger the fans had, and everybody hated us, and we didn't really care. And looking back on those years, and looking back on Louis' career and the Sedin's career, that was probably the pinnacle of all three of those careers. And to be honest, my career too. So it was a special moment in time for those guys. And it was a special moment in time for this team. And I'm so happy that all three of those guys got inducted to the Hall of Fame, because it's so well deserved, not just on the ice, but what they did in the community, what they did off the ice, the people they were, the people that they've grown into. Those are people and adults that you want your kids to grow up, idolizing and wanting to be like them.
It's fascinating to hear you talk about all of that. And as I saw Colorado presented with the cup the other day, it got me thinking, like, are you over 2011? I mean, this market clearly isn't, but are you at peace with, as you said, it was the greatest time of your career and it wasn't meant to be? Or when the cup is awarded each year, do you think, oh man, like we were right there?
Yeah. You can say, you see a guy like Josh Manson and Andrew Tagliano, who I played with, raise the cup, and you're extremely happy for them. I would say for me with Cogs, he was my line mate for 4 or 5 years. So to see what he went through and see the losses we had together, and just knowing how bad that person alone wants it, I was actually really happy for them. On the flip side, it still stings, just the what ifs and that, you always wish you would have been able to do more. You always wish you were healthier. You always wish you had more energy. You always wish, what if I did this or that, but at the end of the day, I can look back on that without seeing the Stanley Cup in my face. I can look back at that and realize all the good times. You think back of BX's game-winning, series clinching goal in overtime to put us into the finals, and the confetti coming down, and then the hundreds of thousands of people in the streets, and the hour and a half it took me to drive 0.5 miles from the arena to my place. It's everything other than that final game, and that is looked at as a positive in my mind, and not just me. I think all the guys, and I know my family and friends, they all look back on it, and yeah, that final game is brutal, but you can't go back and change anything, and I can't win another cup as a player. So not that I'm okay with it, but it's I can't even put into words what it feels like still. It sucks, but I just, I'm happy Boston didn't win this year. Let's just put it that way.
Well, RK17, now a dad to 4 and Coach Cass to 20-some more. And I caught that story on TSN this week. You've got a relationship with one of the kids who's going to be drafted next week in the first round, Frank Nazar, a young forward with the U.S. national team development program. Tell us about that.
Yeah. Frankie and I mentored a couple other kids, Cutter Gauthier and Shane Wright as well, and it's just something my agent had me do a few years back. I think he was worried about me a bit with getting the game taken away from me, and what's Kes going to do now? He can't lash out at opponents or cross check them or. So he kind of gave me this role of putting these kids under my wing and just teaching them how to be a pro. And with all three of those kids that I mentioned, I look back on when I was drafted and how much pressure you put on yourselves. And then you look at it now and it's amplified by 1,000 because social media and everybody's doing their comparisons and it's all in your face. Back when I got drafted, there was something called a red line report that they put out every 4 months, and then they talked about it for a couple weeks and it was done. So, just kind of talking and telling them to enjoy the process. You only get drafted once. And then, kind of helping those players through, a couple of them were banged up this year and didn't know if they could go. And Frankie, for example, we had long talks and I told him, listen, your team needs you and you're only going to play one under 18 championship. If you don't go, you're going to regret it. And I said, you'll be fine. You just got to get over that fear of injury. And it's his first time being injured. So, and I'm so proud of the kid. He went out and killed it. He went out and he was one of the team's best players. And saying that speaks a lot of his character to be able to go out there and play through injury and honestly just show all the scouts that he does. Because you look at first round draft picks, you want character and you want grit and you want players that are going to do anything for their team. And that's a kid as well as the other two kids I talked about, that they're players that are generational players. And, hopefully they all pan out, but getting drafted is the first step. It's where they go from there.
Well, who knows? Probably not Shane Wright, but maybe one of those other two winds up being a Vancouver Canuck next week. And if so, we will call you for the scouting report, Coach Cass. All right?
Yeah, I will.
Great
I will give it to. Yeah.
Great catching up with you, Ryan. Thanks for the time here today.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.